All right, welcome to the Buellton Planning Commission. Okay, I will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Dunstan?
Here.
Commissioner Heedy?
Here.
Commissioner Padilla is absent. Vice Chair Mercado?
Here.
Chair Wright?
Here. We don't have any reordering agenda. I see no presentations. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September the 15th. Can I get a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Dan. Thank you.
Okay.
Good catch. Public comments, none. Consent calendar, none. Public hearings, none. There's none. Other business. All right. Irma, the hiker extraordinaire. And Irma, I have some rather, before you get too far into it, I have some rather detailed questions, especially about your items. So are you going to cover, there was some, in the packet, there were some items, like you had like questions essentially. I'm unsure how else to phrase it. Essentially, I'm referring to I'm referring to general commentary that you have in our packet. Mm-hmm. Are you going to go through that line by line in your presentation?
I wasn't planning on it. However, we can, after the presentation, go through the
Oh, that's fine. If you were going to, I'll just ask specific questions in
Okay.
regards.
That's fine.
Do we need to hold for the recording, Claire?
Pardon me?
Are we good? Do we need to hold for the recording or anything?
No.
Okay. Apologize, Irma. Thank you, ma'am.
That's okay. All right. Thank you, Chairman Roy, and members of the Planning Commission. Tonight we are looking at a preliminary review of the Commons at Zaca Creek. It's located at 610 McMurray Road, just at Demassa tees into McMurray Road. This is a preliminary review of the application for a final development plan and a conditional use permit at this point. And I'm briefly going to go through the project, and then the applicant as well as the architect are here to speak to it further and answer any questions that you may have. The vicinity map shows the location of the project, and I just would like to point out that this is Firestone Walker on the north here. This is the Hampton Inn that's currently under construction, and a lot of buildings right here going up. Demassa Road is right here. The site has two zoning designations on it. CS is service commercial, and CR is general commercial. The site is approximately 4¼ acres. It's currently vacant. The height limit for both of the zones on this property is 35 feet for the buildings, 50 feet for architectural features. The setbacks, the only setback that really applies to the site is a 10-foot front setback along this portion, and landscaping along the street frontage in the front setback area, and a minimum of 5% lot area coverage for the landscaping. The architectural character in this area is a contemporary ranch focus. And I listed the parking standards here that the project was reviewed for, which is for retail and restaurant at 1 space per 300 square feet, 1 space per 2 employees for the restaurant, 1 space per 1,000 square feet for storage warehouse, and 1 space for the manager's unit. So with regards to all that information, the applicant's submittal was pretty complete. The site information, again, this is there's a 100-year flood zone boundary located here to Zaca Creek that runs right here on the western side of the property and on the northern side of the property as well. A 50-foot setback is required for any buildings that are close to Zaca Creek. Parking and landscaping pedestrian activities are allowed closer to Zaca Creek. The 100-year flood zone will require grading to comply with the floodplain ordinance. Just an overall summary of the project is a destination commercial project consisting of a public market, tasting rooms, local and regional restaurants, craft food vendors, unique artisan retailers, and public outdoor uses. As I mentioned before, a final development plan and conditional use permit have been filed for the project. And the development includes over 55,000 square feet of commercial space, the pedestrian Main Street area, outdoor seating areas, bocce courts, open space, a central park, green area. Consists of a complex of 5 buildings. The tallest building is 33 feet high, so it complies with the zoning height regulations. And the interior spaces consist of ground floor, as well as storage for the tenants, and the storage is subterranean and some loft spaces. And there's 1 residential unit provided for an on-site manager. Outdoor elements consist of patios and outdoor seating areas, pedestrian areas, as I mentioned, the green space, and nice views of the surrounding hillsides.
Question.
Yes.
On the subterranean one, how does that figure in with the floodplains? Do they have to be, every part of it has to be above the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain?
That's a good question. I would like to defer to Rose Hess, our Public Works Director, for the answer to that.
Well, the base floor typically has to be 2 foot above the floodplain, but
The base floor meaning the ground floor.
right. But basements and some subsurface areas are allowed underground. They just have to flood-proof the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to mention that there's an architectural feature, which is a steel sign tower that is 45 feet high, which is also allowed by the code, as well as a pedestrian bridge that spans Zaca Creek.
And so what is the difference between a steel sign tower and what the applicant from the gas station wanted to put in, where he wanted to have gasoline on a large pole? What's the
Yeah,
distinction?
nothing. We're gonna have a lot of discussion about signage.
And let me address that. The Avenue of Flags prohibits those signs, whereas
Okay.
this area does not.
Okay, so it's just an area.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you, though, overall.
Okay. All right. As far as vehicle parking goes, the code requires 158 spaces, 160 are provided by the project. They just need to show the location of the 4 handicapped spaces that's required for that amount of parking, as well as the loading zone. Bicycle parking, they are providing quite a bit of bicycle parking at various locations throughout the project, as well as 30 of those total spaces that would be allocated to a bike share program, and the applicant will talk a little bit more to that as well. I know he's got a handout to show you kind of what he's got in mind for the bicycle share program. Project access is provided via a shared driveway with the Hampton Inn. There's a recorded easement in order to provide this. And additional access is also along McMurray Road, which provides access to the front parking area. And I'll touch upon some comments regarding this a little bit later on. The environmental review is required for this project, and the level of review is pending completion of the initial study. Special studies are being prepared. Proposals have been requested for that. Traffic study, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, and a peer review of the biological assessment, which the applicant has provided a copy of that. And if there's any additional work to be done on the bio assessment, that's going to be in addition to this.
So you go back one, though?
Yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, 'cause it's not in this, maybe, hold on. Okay, so in the staff report, it does not have a traffic plan, a traffic study, excuse me. but in the briefing it does.
It should.
The following studies reports have been submitted: geotechnical, drainage, flood, stormwater, biological,
Right.
cultural, phase 1 environmental, preliminary title, and policy title.
That is correct. These studies will be prepared for the environmental review, and they will be prepared by the city's consultants,
So it'll be part of the environmental.
and they'll be part of the environmental. So we've requested proposals for that, and as soon as the applicant pays fees for that, the studies will be prepared.
Okay, so there will be a traffic study. Okay,
Yes.
cool, thanks.
Okay. So this is the site plan. I'll just point out McMurray Road. The front parking area is here. Zaca Creek runs right here. This right here is DeMassa Road. This is a driveway that currently accesses the Hampton Inn, which is here, and this shared access is right here. That provides access to this property, and the parking is right here. The building, there's 5 buildings. This larger one is the public market, and these smaller buildings are either retail, food, smaller restaurants. And this is the bocce ball court area, outdoor spaces, pedestrian spaces. Pedestrian bridge is located right here that spans Zaca Creek. And there's a clear view right here to the old barn that's in the back. This is the landscape concept for the project. And I included one of the floor plans just to kind of illustrate. This is for the public market. I didn't include all the other floor plans, but it is kind of interesting. These are the stalls. There's restaurants in here. There's vendor stalls in here, and large circulation area here. There's exhibit space and a kitchen here. These are the storage areas that each of the tenants will have access to. The subterranean storage. And one of the other buildings has loft storage, so it will be provided via a mezzanine. I'm going to quickly go through these. These are the elevations. I believe this is the south elevation, looking from the Hampton Inn. Pedestrian bridge. This is the public market this is the north elevation, again the pedestrian bridge, and the sign tower is right here. Additional elevations. This is an enlarged elevation of the public market. Those are the side views, and these are the end views. These are the 3D views of the project. Again, this is the public market and the other buildings in relation. And the interior of the project, showing the bocce ball courts surrounded by the other buildings. They open out into the bocce ball court area and the green space, central park area. Another view of that area from a different angle, and pedestrian alleyways, walkways between the buildings. So I would like to just summarize the comments at this point. There was more detail in the staff report, and I'm happy to go through those as you ask questions on those and answer questions. I'm just going to go quickly through this. Site plan. Okay. We need to show the 10-foot front setback along McMurray Road and eliminate parking in the setback area. Need to show access and circulation for pedestrians, bicyclists, and emergency vehicles on the site. Something that will be needed. The applicant will need to sit down with the fire department and make sure that all the emergency vehicles can access, and the fire department standards are met for fire access to all the buildings. The location of all the existing trees need to be identified on site plan, as well as a tabulation and a status of each shown on the landscape plan as well, and what new plantings and any replacement trees that are being proposed. A master sign program is needed that would include associated lighting. And the lighting plan will also need to identify the location and specifications for all lighting fixtures throughout the project, including the parking areas. Oh, wow.
We weren't going to tell you.
Yeah, we're going to let you just...
You got to take it back to.
Needs a weightlifter
Goes back in
belt.
my car.
CrossFit walk
Okay.
number 2 today.
So,
I'm listening, Irma.
all right, so including the parking areas for the lighting plan didn't really address the parking areas. We would also like the applicant to consider multiple trash collection areas. The single location that's shown is very close to the creek at this point, and because of the large area of the site, it doesn't really provide for easy access for all tenants. And we will also require fully dimensioned color elevations of all the buildings. The renderings that were provided are nice, but we will require some standard fully dimensioned elevations for all the buildings from all sides. The landscape plan comments. I had some comments in the staff report, and the Planning Commission, we distributed comments from our design review team as well that had some landscape comments, and I've kind of summarized the main ones here. We will require a complete planting and irrigation plan with plant legend that corresponds to the location of plantings and site amenities. The landscape plan will need to show the 10-foot front setback area as well as landscaping in that area. And it's suggested that the 5-foot landscape strip be planted adjacent to all the buildings, or they may consider using planters in the patio areas for screening. We'd like the applicant to consider alternate paving materials to provide some surface variety, as well as trellises over the walkways to provide shade and landscaping opportunities. The location of the utility service areas will need to be shown, such as the mechanical and electrical equipment, especially if they are on the rooftops and on the ground, and what screening is provided for those utilities. And the landscape plan will need to include a statement addressing the state water conservation mandate. The building design comments, again, I've summarized some of the comments that came from our design review process. The site is technically located in the Contemporary Ranch focus area of the design guidelines, but we're really reviewing it as agrarian and contemporary ranch. Contemporary ranch does allow for some agrarian features, but we would like the applicant to address how elements of each style are being used and to show them on the plans where they've used the styles. Both of these styles encourage heavy timber construction. We'd like to see how the overhangs are designed. And patio railings appear to be glass, and a suggestion was made that wood would be an appropriate material used for the railings as well. Roof drainage needs to be addressed, including how rainwater may be diverted to the green areas. We noticed that there were spiral staircases leading to the subterranean storage areas as well as to the loft storage areas, and we're wondering whether this may be a challenge for tenants to use when transporting larger, heavy boxes. And some of the building floor plans appear incomplete, and we'll provide more details to the applicant in terms of what specifically we are looking for on some of those plans. These are public works comments. We would like the applicant to consider widening the pedestrian bridge for secondary vehicular access or create a separate bridge for vehicles. And also the bridge abutments should be outside of the floodway. We'd like to see additional topo and site information on the grading plans that extend to the adjacent properties to show how the project integrates with the existing facilities on those sites. The floodway study will need to clarify the elevations raised and displacement from the project development, including parking and improvements that are in the floodway. And we'd like to see an analysis of the flood elevation impacts on adjacent parcels. In the stormwater control plan, we'd like to see the applicant clarify the type of low-impact development that will be used for retention and treatment. This last comment is in regards to that small sliver of land along McMurray Road. The applicant is requesting that the city consider vacating a portion of McMurray Road that appears to be excess to the city's needs for the roadway improvements. So we have asked the applicant to show the ultimate right-of-way and that they will need to actually develop to the ultimate right-of-way widths, and we will be working with them to establish where those widths are according to what our ultimate build-out is for those roadways. And we are asking the applicant to formally request that the city vacate any excess right-of-way that might be identified, and then to request that this excess parcel of land be conveyed to the project for use as the parking area along McMurray Road.
Can we
Yes.
talk about this for a moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not really understanding what I understand sub-bullet 2.
Okay.
I got that. I don't understand sub-bullet 1.
Okay. So
I'm familiar with the sliver of land on McMurray. I got that.
all right, so I don't need to go back there. So we, with Public Works, we're going to establish where the ultimate right-of-way line needs to be.
Okay, so I'm confused. Right now. Are we unsure where it is in the status quo?
Well, because we have this excess, we have a piece of land, that sliver of land that extends beyond that. It was created a long time ago, so we want to make sure that there's no need for that land anywhere.
So that land that is technically is McMurray, if you will. Mm-hmm. We have the city has the ultimate right of way.
Right.
Okay, that's not up for debate, or is it?
No, at this point, that sliver of land belongs to the city.
Okay, good.
So what we need to do is just work for the applicant and provide them the width of McMurray Road that they need to put onto their site plans to establish that boundary, and then we can see how much excess land there is for them to be able to use.
Okay.
Can you put the map up, Irma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, also, when you do get the map up, I'll just ask my next question. Is the 160 parking spots they have allotted? Is that assumed? And is that assuming that we give up our right of way for the parking?
This is correct.
Okay.
So this is the sliver of land here. So the alignment for McMurray right here with the Hampton Inn project is right here. It is roughly right here, and they are not really showing on their site plan what that roadway width is and the city standards for the sidewalks and the landscaping that's required there. So we need to work with the applicant to make sure that they're showing that roadway width properly, and that will identify how much excess land there is, and that will determine how much of it they can use.
And what that just means is the city may, and that's what Rose will take a look at, may not need that property for the road. And if we don't, then the standard procedure in California is to vacate the excess right-of-way. And we've done that in different areas of the city as well.
Okay.
But at this point, we don't know where the property line between their property and future, or the city right-of-way, will be until Rose takes a more close look at the needs of the city as far as what we need as far as that shaded area. And once we know that, we can go through the vacation process and they would be able to use that particular property.
Yeah, I get it. So, okay. So there could be a parking problem, or there couldn't be a parking problem.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, I'm clear now. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I believe that was the conclusion of the comments on the project. And the recommendation is, at this point, is that the Planning Commission provide direction to the applicant and staff on the proposed project plans.
So on the tails of the comments Foster brought forward with Rose. So Rose, we got a little bit of activity going on in McMurray, so consideration is one of the things you think about is, do we need to consider second lanes or traffic studies and all that?
Well, traffic study still needs to be underway, and that's something that they're going to look at also.
Sure.
But the ultimate right-of-way had been determined for McMurray between 246 and DeMassa, and that's what Hampton Inn built to, and that's what the village specific plan is building out to.
Sure.
The north part of McMurray, north of DeMassa, is a narrower roadway width. So they're at this transition point on McMurray that we want to, that's why it's important for us to see the topo of existing to the north and to the south of them to make sure that we have the proper transition so it's not an issue. We've got this, the appropriate amount of right-of-way so that the lane widths and the roadway widths are sufficient.
Yeah, and people are parking on the street at Firestone all the time, so that's a consideration as well.
But, so, if I understand the crux of Brian's question, though, are you going to get the topo and conduct your analysis prior to the conclusion of the traffic study, or post the conclusion of the traffic study, because the traffic study could impact the need to potentially increase whatever it is on McMurray?
We're going to need it before the conclusion of traffic study so we can see, at least preliminarily from our needs now, just from what's existing. And then the traffic study may have something more or
Okay, that's fine, but we're not going to vacate the land prior.
No.
Okay, so we're going to fully evaluate the whole project before we go down any
Right.
vacation. Okay, got it.
Right.
All right. All right, good question, Brian. Anybody have more questions? So, one question for you, Irma.
Okay.
I assume they've seen this and they haven't provided you responses, so we can just ask the applicant before I inundate you with questions. Probably, I was going to ask the applicant, unless you know answers to questions
And that's
already.
fine, too. The applicant has received a copy of the staff report as
Okay.
well as the design review comments. So
Okay.
they've got, they haven't seen the PowerPoint, but that just summarizes everything
Oh, yeah,
that's in
yes,
here.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Understood. Wait, anybody have more questions for staff? All right, no?
There are a lot of questions, but maybe you can wait till the applicant.
Okay, before the applicant speaks, I need to admit to having ex parte communication with Don about potentially leasing some site, getting costs and whatnot for the brewery that we're working on as a complete side project. So, anyway, enough said. We have not entered any documented negotiation, any of that stuff. So, I talked to Mark about it, et cetera. All right. Okay, applicant. And Don, we're probably going to have a number of detailed questions, so you can let us know if you want to ask them to you when you're done, or ask the architect. Or
Sure. So, well, thank you for the time to first start off tonight, both planning commissioners and planning staff.
Don, can you get the microphone up? Thank you.
There, can you hear me now?
We're on YouTube, Don. We don't mess around here.
So again, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us tonight and review our final development plan for the commons at Zaca Creek, long awaited from our perspective and folks with the city. What I'm going to be doing, just giving you a brief overview of the project. I know we touched upon a lot of the project back in the spring when we did our design review. And then I'm going to be turning over the podium to Dan Weber, our architect, who's going to be speaking to various architectural elements. So depending on your questions, probably when Dan comes up here, I'll stay up here. And as questions come, one or both of us will field it. We have gotten a preliminary draft of the city's comments, and we did earlier today get a draft of the architectural comments. So most of the items, I think, in general, and Dan will speak a little more to it, are items that we're perfectly fine in going through and correcting and taking into consideration. So I didn't think we saw anything there that was
No showstoppers.
yeah, that was overly significant. Obviously, we need to work through some of the parking aspects and the right-of-way issues. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to get where we need to be. So without further ado, just to kind of give you a little recap of the comments, obviously, as Irma mentioned in her presentation, this is a kind of a Class A destination retail development that we're putting in, really to cater both to local population as well as visitors alike coming to the area. I think when we look at our project, there was 3 key elements we took into consideration from a design perspective. One of those key elements was really, the thoughtful design of the project, creating a community space. And when I mean community space, very pedestrian friendly with pedestrian walkways and access. Plenty of open space and outdoor patio space for seating. And I think, as well as kind of the wonderful lawn area that overlooks the countryside. So we tried to create a really, neighborhood-friendly style development was important. The second aspect was really from more of a tenant perspective of creating a very curated mix of tenants that was across retail, across food service, across tasting rooms, and really creating kind of a dynamic balance where we had multiple drivers of traffic coming to the property at potentially different times of day, balancing itself out. And then really finally the third component was literally the location. We found that this particular location for what our project was a great fit. It's obviously located within the city limits, hence we're here today, but it had a very country feel, opening to the hillside and the rustic old barn. Hence why, from a design perspective, that was a large element of our project, really designing it towards the hill and opening it up that direction, so folks coming into the project would be able to enjoy those country elements. The location, easy access both from 101 and 246 were important to us. Bike friendly. We created a site where we have 60 plus parking spots for bicycles, 30 of which are within or going to be within a bike rideshare program, of which I just have a handout here to give you gentlemen that basically just shows a mock-up of what these bikes look like. So I'll hand it to Irma to pass out. And you can take a look at it at your leisure, per se. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you go through now, but just to kind of get an idea of what we're talking. How the bike share program would effectively work is we would have a racking system for 30 of those bikes at our location, and then work with some of the other retailers and potentially even the city of putting racking systems on outlying areas, 5 to 10 minutes away from the project site. So it could be a racking system at or near Flying Flags is a perfect example, where a person pays $1 to rent the bike. They can ride the bike over to our facility. They can relock it at our facility, and when they're done, they ride it back to where they got it. So basically, it's trying to extend the aspect of getting bike traffic and walking traffic into our development and promote that as much as possible. And needless to say, I think our development itself is highly walkable. We're at a location where to the south of us there is the vineyard development of residential going in. That's easy access to our property, and even to the west of us with a lot of the housing built on the other side of the 101. It's a quick walk across the Damasa Bridge into our project. So I think all those were very important elements. Not to mention we have the close proximity to approximately 750 hotel rooms within a 5 to 10 minute walk of our development. So needless to say, I think we feel that the development is a great fit for the community. We think it is very complementary retail to what is in the city of Buellton and the greater San Ynez Valley. And we are definitely looking forward to feedback and direction from you folks from a design perspective. At this time, I'll go ahead and turn the mic over to Dan Weber, our architect, and he can speak a little bit to the various design elements of the project, and then we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Don.
Good evening, Dan Weber, architect. Thanks, Don. I think between Irma's and Don's presentations, they were really thorough and got y'all oriented to the project, so I won't spend any time with a broad overview. Since you last saw the project in April, we received largely favorable comments from the commission, so we didn't do any wholesale changes. The footprints are very similar. We fine-tuned the program, working with Don and his efforts with his tenants. We fine-tuned the parking and the relationship to the creek and the setbacks. There were just a couple of things, a couple of comments from the commission that we did address that were substantial. The first one was the water tower feature. We got some mixed feedback. Some people liked the water tower element. Others thought it was a little heavy-handed of a gesture because it's not an authentic water tower. So we did, in this submittal, we changed that feature to a more subtle and abstract tower element that serves as a entry marker, a clock tower, and also an opportunity for signage with an architectural character that's a little lighter and appropriate and consistent with the truss element of the bridge that crosses the creek.
And where will that sign be, or where's the location of it?
Yeah, perhaps Irma can switch back to the
right there.
to the elevations.
Great.
It's right
Sorry.
there.
Yep. There you go. Perfect. So we think that was great feedback, and I think we've addressed that one. The second one was related to the architectural character, primarily of the market building, and
It looks much better.
thank you. Yeah, one or more thought that was a little urban and a little not quite Buellton, so we did look around Buellton for some of with your help, for some of the buildings that the community really likes. And one of the ones that we really loved is just as you're coming into town from the south, just to the east of the freeway, there's a long agricultural building with a long gabled roof that's all rusty. And we thought that inspired us with the market. So our market, we've taken cues from that long building with the rusty corrugated roof, and we think that with your help was a great improvement over the last effort at the market. The materials board, which we've provided.
Yeah, boy, did you.
Well, we considered a smaller version, but we wanted to get some samples there that were big enough to show the character.
I don't think it was the samples. I think it's literally the board it's on.
So we have a variety of materials that are representative of the contemporary ranch and agrarian styles. Most prominent due to this building type is a number of metal panels. So we've got a few types of corrugated metal panels that are used both for siding on vertical faces as well as for roofing. We wanted to have a few tones to provide variety of building shades. Some of the buildings in the project are using a reclaimed barnwood siding to give some tie-in to the authentic. We do abut that agriculturally zoned property to the east, and we want to tie in to that. Concrete, we hope in a lot of areas to have concrete with a stain to it, so it's a little bit higher quality than just normal light gray concrete. And then there's a lot of steel and aluminum, dark steel aluminum window frames and steel trellises and other components typical of buildings of this scale and of this type. So that's, I think, all I've got to offer. Yeah, we did receive the comments from the design review and from the staff report, so we're going to be working through those. I don't see anything in there that's going to cause us to have to reevaluate any major components of the design. I think they're all good comments, and we'll be working with the staff to address those. So most of the questions I'll defer to Don, unless there's anything specific that you want to kick back to me.
Sure. No, I think just open up the questions to the commissioners, and we can address them either I can or you can, depending on what they are.
Okay, so just make sure whoever's speaking, we got to use the mic.
Sure.
We take the YouTube thing quite seriously.
Sure.
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. So first off, awesome project, much better. Thank you for incorporating our stuff. So I do have some serious comments. I don't think they're going to be showstoppers either, but let's try to work together to get there.
Sure.
But overall, epic project. And
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I'll say that up front. And Mr. Weber, thanks for that barn now actually looks like it belongs in Buellton, I think. So, okay. So I think my questions are really centered mainly on the comment that you're probably going to get, I would assume, but I'm significantly concerned about your one entry and exit point for driving, for the most part, I should say. I understand there's this secondary little parking lot, but essentially, I would say 90% of your parking resides on that one entry to go all the way in and around.
Yes.
And I think the staff's got a good point about a secondary entry and exit point for vehicular traffic. Have we, that's like number one on the list. So.
Yeah, no, and I understand, and we can evaluate it. I mean, we've looked at it, to be honest with you, early on.
Okay.
The challenge when you have a secondary point, and part of the reason, from my understanding, even with the city requiring the easement off the Hampton property into our property, was to focal the traffic predominantly coming into that one driveway, because you also have Firestone there. And I think part of it was having multiple driveway accesses and multiple ins and outs off of McMurray Road. I mean, we can look at that. The challenge, I will say, is going to be dramatically dealing with the federal officials with the creek, because even putting that walking bridge over the creek is a bit like moving a mountain to get accomplished. So to do that from a road perspective, I think could be a bit more challenging, but we're definitely open to at least looking at those aspects and how it potentially can impact.
Okay, and so,
is there a possibility where having another exit from going into the Hamptons from the backside at all?
I mean, it would require an additional easement from the Hampton. It would also require the Hampton likely losing parking, and they are pretty much at the code minimum to that perspective. So
been looked at.
go ahead, Mark.
Just to let you know that they're following the direction that the city gave, that we wanted the one combined entrance at Hampton to share for both projects. We didn't want other access points, but our traffic consultant will be looking at the potential of having a secondary, but it was not the recommendation of staff when we move forward with projects on these parcels.
Okay, well,
and we will look, but the traffic consultant will look at that.
so he's following the guidance, but there is a comment in the staff package. So help me. Who's right? The original staff comment or the current staff comment?
When Hampton was developing, we aligned the driveway so that we created an intersecting leg. So
yeah, Rose, I get it. I like his argument. I think it's. I went to college on a debate scholarship. I think he's got a solid argument. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what's the overall comment position on the staff. Is it the initial comment that we want one in and out minus the little tiny parking lot, or is it that we need to think about a whole nother vehicular access, which is what is in the staff package today?
that requirement will be determined at the conclusion of the traffic study,
Okay.
ultimately.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. So there you go.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, and I'm sure, given the scope and quality of the project, I'm sure it's a non-issue, but please do take into consideration the integration piece, the second comment about we're trying to keep this thing all pedestrian friendly, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to see how it integrates into the south and the north projects. From
Okay.
I want to be able to see how I walk from, say, a Hampton to your property, continuing on to Firestone.
Gotcha.
Okay? I think that's a rather huge, not issue, but
Yeah, no, we can.
I'm sure you want that too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and we can address that, I think, a little more clearly, because we do have an access point from the side entrance of the Hampton into our property. We also have the main access point through the driveway, and it's our objective as well to make sure that from the Hampton to our property to Firestone, that is a very continuous feel, that it's not jutting in and out, and that it's matching whatever, sight lines need to be matched, so it's cohesive.
Okay.
Just on that one. So at the bottom there, is that where your next entrance from the Hampton Inn is? At the very bottom?
Yes,
Okay.
at the very
There's
bottom.
a fence and, okay.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, right there. And so there's the main driveway in, and then that driveway is feeding both our property as well as the Hampton Inn property.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. No, yeah.
Real quick.
Everyone cut me off. I don't. You know me. I don't care. Okay, so signage and lighting. So I was never a fan of the. I wasn't actually opposed to the water tower, but I was definitely opposed to the size of that sign. I am anti-pole signs, and I'm not indicating this is a pole sign, so don't take that the wrong way. Architects, I know, I get it, but I am opposed to a 50-foot sign, no matter what it is. And so that's my opinion. Now I don't know.
I like the water tower.
Well, the water tower's out.
I know.
So it's a clock.
We can go back to the water.
It's a clock tower now. Are you okay with the clock tower?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Brian?
So if the clock tower, are we looking at having just something that says the Commons, Ithaca?
Yeah.
Or are we looking at something that has each retail
No.
space highlighted?
It's just going to be the branding of the development, and it's going to be a clock element or a working clock there, and it's going to be very simple. It's basically just a landmarker of here's where we are. It's not advertising the tenants within the project.
That's fine.
I don't have a problem
Then
with it.
I can go.
Okay.
I can live with that one.
What's your day?
I would like to, before passing judgment on it, actually see what you're planning.
Sure.
And, some sort of color rendition.
And we can get more detailed draftings of what that looks like, because at the level we've shown it here, I know it's a little abstract and it's a little bit at a distance.
Yeah.
So we can do a blow-up rendering of what that is.
You're not opposed to the height on the outset.
I feel bad for the gas station, but they happen to be located on the Avenue of Flags, and I get that. That they're going to see another project with a 45-foot sign, and they're going to go, what happened? But no, I'm not opposed to the 45-foot.
And one comment I would make in that too, and I get 100% what you're saying, Foster, in regards to having something that potentially sticks out and becomes not cohesive with the surroundings. I think part of that, and we can take into consideration as well, but I think if we look at the Hampton Hotel itself, that's at a 40 or 45-foot height. That's a fairly tall building. I don't think we're sticking out beyond anything of the buildings around us, both with Firestone and the Hampton Inn. I think we're in line with that. If we were sticking out taller, we would be fine to bring it in line with that. But I think just to be a good neighbor and to be cohesive for the design, that probably makes the most sense if the commissioners were approving of that.
I have one comment on just the location. If I'm looking for the Commons and I see that sign, I'm pulling into that driveway there, which takes you to some really small parking lots. Have you considered it down below where your main entrance is?
Well, part of the location of the sign as it sits now was kind of just creating a landmark design element that, from a line of sight perspective, you saw all the way back to the barn. And we totally get what you're saying from a signage perspective. I think if people do see that sign, one of two things. If they're coming northbound on McMurray Road, they're going to see, and we'll have signage down by the main entrance driveway of our primary entrance. If they're traveling, that sign could most likely only be seen for what we're doing if they're traveling on the 101 southbound. And to that point, if they get off at McMurray, chances are they'll have missed the McMurray exit. They're going to have to go to the 246 exit to get off. So I think directionally we'll be able to get people to the right driveway, because it doesn't behoove us to have them drive around in circles either in that process.
Okay.
No, I'm utterly opposed to the 45-foot sign, so luckily you're out. I lose 3-1, so don't worry about me. All right, there you go. But I do think the staff commentary about, I'm huge on signs, and I do think we need to get a signage plan.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that note, let me just provide one bit of clarity, because you got my hair on the back of my neck. There is neon in your signage printout here.
If there,
Mark,
if there,
We did it just for you, Foster.
I know. No neon. No neon. So Don say no neon.
So, well, just so you understand, from our lease agreements, we have no neon in our lease agreements. So if it's actually included there, it might have just been more stylistic than it is the actual neon itself.
Okay, so it's for the restaurant. So no.
Well, yeah, and trust me when I say we are not a big fan of it, especially the open neon signs and those. I mean, you know, if it's a 1950s diner, I get why they're neon, but outside of that type of an establishment, it's a little less preferred for us.
Okay, sorry. You know, got. Oof. We had a moment. Okay. Okay, let me see. Okay, so if we could move on to some of the specific comments from the I'm not going to call it the Board of Architecture review because it's got a horrible connotation. Our review, our architect review. So. Let me go to where the items I have listed here. Okay.
And just as a side note, we just received that this afternoon, so we haven't dug in deeply, but we did review it. And again, I think most of the comments there are comments we can work through and with.
Okay, and honestly, I'm not necessarily. I'm speaking for Foster, not for the commission. Everyone else, please chime in or take your turn, whatever. But some of them, I don't necessarily agree with everything that the guy says either. So, and I know, you know, an architect's an art, so one artist is going to have a different opinion than another. Don't worry about it. So the crosswalk thing, I do think that does need to be somehow better designated.
And we would agree.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The trash enclosure. All right. So I've worked retail. Can you? I mean, you're not really expecting those guys in those buildings on the south to lug that stuff all the way.
So a couple points, and why
that'd be good.
Why we did what we did. So the trash enclosure we developed is actually large enough to handle all the trash volume the development would produce, and we worked with that with Marborg from a capacity perspective. We chose that one location because, to be honest, it is on the outset of our property and is away from our property, and it is not downwind of our property, so to speak. So that was the challenge or why we selected that particular location. We looked at potentially having two locations, a southern trash receptacle area and then the northern trash receptacle area. And what we found is with the southern trash area, our concerns would be between a restaurant, between the tasting rooms, and honestly between our neighbor, the Hampton, to the south, you know, any potential fumes or obnoxious odors that would be coming from that trash unit. The way our project is developed, and when I mentioned earlier, it's Class A real estate, we have janitorial and on-site maintenance there from 8 in the morning till closing of the development at night. So we have looked in with our own leases of providing that ability to where our janitorial crew will come and do the trash pickups
for the leasees.
Yes, through the day.
Nice.
So we've looked at ways to mitigate that concern, and especially for the southern. I mean, if you're in the public market, it's easy enough to take it out. But if you're on the southern end of the development, you know, to have a guy come around at 10 in the morning who's doing the trash pickup, and then once in the afternoon or evening, restaurants we may have to look at a little differently because they are the primary trash generators. But when you look at a tasting room or some of our other retailers, there's not a significant trash generation from those businesses.
All right. Well, hey, triple in, right? Okay. That was a good one. No one likes my jokes today. That was a good one. Okay. You like that one.
Is there a consensus from the commission on whether the one location is fine or staff's recommendation that they split it?
Well, I don't know. That's... Okay, I'll say my opinion, and everyone else can outvote me again. But I mean, if he says that he meets capacity and the workers don't have to lug the trash, he has a hired crew to do it.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
Dan, you?
No? If you hadn't told me that you were going to have somebody on your staff doing it, I'd say you need another one.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have dedicated staff that go how many times a day, whatever, you're going to determine that, then I'm okay with it.
Okay.
And just realize that can't be a condition, so you just have to go with their
that they're going to do that, because if for some reason they don't, then there could be issues with trash collection, because staff's not going to monitor when people are out there collecting trash and moving out there. So
if I could interject at one point, and I totally appreciate and understand the comment, if we didn't do it and it was a problem for our tenants, I mean, what we're going to have is a development that has trash and odors and issues, and that's the last thing we want is the developer and property management and owner of the project. So it's really in all of our best interests that the trash is managed in an appropriate manner. Hence why we located the trash where we did, kind of outside of the envelope from the visitor perspective of who's coming to the development. Now, in regards to the actual trash location, there was a comment made in relation to the proximity to the creek, and I think we can fix that by kind of flipping that location, moving it closer to the public market building and flipping the parking that was on the other side. So I think we can accommodate that, and we're not, and I'll make this comment, we're not fully opposed to doing a second trash location. I think we just need to try to work through it from the fumes perspective on how we'd manage that whole aspect. Because to be honest with you, with the southern restaurant on our property, we would still want them to take restaurant trash. We would still want them to take it to the northern trash location because of the potential of odors. But we're happy to look through alternatives on that as well.
Did you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with it a little bit, to be honest with you. I mean, your points are valid. They're dead on. I get it. It seems from a logistics standpoint a challenge, and if you have staff doing it, I guess it makes sense. But I worked at restaurants quite a bit, and I definitely I just see it kind of odd having guys lug around trash while you have a bunch of people hanging out in the lawn having a glass of wine.
I mean, trust me, that's why we want to control that process. Yeah. I mean, we've developed and created a project we think that's a showpiece and a showplace for the city and the valley itself, and it's the last thing we want is trash being lugged through. So there, between us handling it, between there being restricted times of when people can be moving these objects, it is a manageable situation, and our focus was providing the appropriate amount of trash containment on the property, and then figuring through the business aspects on our end how we make that work.
Sure. Okay.
Well, you're outvoted 3-1 anyway.
This is just a question, comment about, you're talking to odors, you want to keep it away from the Hampton Inn, obviously. You have a couple of full-service restaurants here. Mm-hmm. And is there going to be multiple grease interceptors?
Yeah. We've looked at it with...
Boy, you want to talk about a stinky situation.
Yeah, no, definitely, and we understand the sensitivity with that. I don't know that it's reflected. It may be, and this may be something for the architect, but we discussed having 3 separate receptacles in the development. That is part of what we are building out as the landlord. It's not a tenant improvement aspect. We were going to have one servicing the public market, so the 2 fast casuals in there, and effectively one servicing each of the full-service restaurants.
Okay. So they're going to share grease traps?
The 2, in theory, there'll be a centralized grease trap for the public market with both restaurants feeding into that grease trap, and then the other 2 separate restaurants, there'll be individual grease traps. Typically, these are located out in the parking lot area is where the tanks are held and where the...
You're just going to have a heck of a time dumping them at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But that's probably what you're going to have to do. So, just a comment.
Yeah, no, and typically the pickup times for that kind of disposal are not in the middle of the day. So it's either very early in the morning or very late at night that those are being done. And most likely for our project, it'll be very, very early in the morning.
Okay,
that's a good question. Okay, I think the guy is right about the spiral staircases. You disagree?
In my experience, I've actually used them in restaurant facilities where we've had liquor storage upstairs.
Carrying cases of liquor?
Carrying cases, yeah. But for this perspective,
do you have a limp?
No, no. And from that perspective, we expect from a stairway design, that is something that we've put actually on the tenant improvement side of it, because we feel from a stairway perspective, it's a design element. Some may want a circular stairway, some may want a traditional stairway, some may want a stairway with a 90-degree angle. And from our perspective, we just showed what was the most simplistic design from a second floor reachability. So with the circular stairways, they are a focal point within the loft spaces of the tasting rooms. Within the public market, there's elevator access and traditional stairs. The full-service restaurant that has a basement does have a circular stairway inside, but also has an exterior traditional stairway outside. So, but we're open to looking at other layouts. It's really going to be more of a tenant design issue of how they want to lay out their space and how they want that stairway to work.
Okay.
It's up to them.
Cool with that? Any issue with
Yeah,
that?
I mean, leave it up to the tenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
And
cool with
everybody's
that.
happy.
Yeah.
So we can't condition that though either. This is the thing. So he's going to leave.
You can, that's a condition, because that's a physical type of item
Why?
you can require and
Well, yeah,
monitor.
but he's saying he's going to tailor it to the tenant.
And that's fine.
So how do I? What would the condition be?
Well, if you're leaving it to the tenant, there's no condition.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. That's like the other thing essentially. Okay. Free market. Got it. All right. All right. I do have a question about Building E. I think he does have a good point. And
Sure.
Maybe essentially may be a short answer, but is everyone just going to get into and out of all of the locations on Building E from the patio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the entrances and exits of those tasting room spaces are directly dumping into the patio areas.
Okay. So you walk through the patio.
Yeah, you
get
would
to inside.
You would walk through a railed patio,
Right.
where there would be an entrance, and then you would walk through the patio to get to the front door to walk into the tasting room space.
Okay, and then subsequent question and I'm sure you've looked into this, for the ABC rules, just because I'm curious, can you have to stay within each tasting room?
Yes. So from the perspective of alcohol service within the tasting room spaces, hence why we need the delineation of the patios and the rails, is you have licensed tasting room space. So an individual can, in theory, go in, they can enjoy a glass of wine, they can walk around within the tasting room or within the patio area, but technically they cannot take that open container outside of that patio area.
Okay, so any thought as to making that railing, I don't know, I guess, not that I don't like the concept, but what about removing the dividers or something and making it, I hate to use the word beer garden, but like making it more open patio-esque?
The challenge with making it more open patio-esque, because we've looked at a variety of things, and we've sat down with ABC out of San Luis Obispo that covers this area to walk through all the project licensing. In theory, there has to be some sort of demarcation of what that licensed drinking space is. When we talk about, because we had looked at the aspect of like the pedestrian walkway where all the tasting rooms are facing each other, kind of in the middle of our development, and I'll walk and show you.
Yeah, please do.
So through that area is a perfect example. It can't be free-flowing of folks that are drinking and walking from kind of one space to another unless, for example, all 6 or 8 of those tasting rooms are under one license, and if one person has an infraction, they all have an infraction. So the delineation is key, and my development partner, who's a wine attorney, can probably speak somewhat to it. But yeah, we have to have some degree of delineation within the spaces. We're trying to make that delineation. We've shown it with the railing, but we're trying to make it as minimal or as attractive as possible. Some areas may be railing if it fits for the building. Some areas may be a planter, because it could be a planter that creates that.
You got to break it up by license.
Yeah.
Okay, copy. Okay, this is my last question, ironically, is the overhangs. I would like to see how the overhangs are designed, considering there's just wafts of roofing. So I'm sure it's going to look great, but if you could just provide that specificity when we come back, I have full faith in your ability to.
And we should be able to do that.
I'm not worried about it. I think we should just see it.
Okay.
Okay. All All right, I thank you all for letting me go on a tirade. Whoever would like to go next, by all means.
I'll go ahead. This might be one for Rose, I'm not exactly sure. I noticed in the staff comments that there was a comment about the FEMA floodplain pre and post grading. Does that mean that the floodplain might change after grading? That just seems like an odd.
Yeah, potentially. If they're filling in, the water that was going to be there is going to be displaced somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's probably not significant. I mean, depends on how much they fill. And we just need to know where and how that displacement is going to be.
Okay.
We don't want it to impact another property adjacent or downstream and that didn't have water on the plans beforehand and now would.
Okay.
So that's something typical that we always request for any development that's within a floodplain.
I just don't remember seeing that before. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. I think the detail in the landscape plan and parking plan, site plan, lighting, all that kind of stuff is
100%.
going to be
We agree.
required. As far as shared access, I think you already talked about that with the shared access and how it flows from the Hampton all the way up, so we don't need to go into that anymore. The garden bed is an interesting design area. What is your mindset around that? What's your thought process?
Our mindset was to create something that was representative of the community. And when I say representative of the community, having kind of the garden with potential squash and tomatoes and a variety of things growing there, being representative of an agricultural area, and doing that in a tasteful way. So as we go through and do the detailed landscape plans, that's something that we need to really flush out what we want to do within that space.
Sure. My only thought around that is, and whoever's been to Flatbread up north in the Los Alamos, my kids love that place. And we go in there and they are running around the garden bed like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And I see that right next to where that road and the pedestrian areas are. And it concerns me slightly that there might be a gravitational pull for these kids to want to go there. So I don't know if there's fencing or other ideas that are coming to.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, I mean you bring up the flatbread, and it's a great example. It probably depends a lot on our plant choices of what we do in that area, depending on how the level of attraction a child is going to have to want to go play in those plants or not. So I think that's great feedback for us to take into consideration as we look at what we would do exactly within that range.
Yeah, just maybe like a fence or something like that, just to kind of enclose it or something. I don't know. Just something to think about. The floor plan on the public market, so just kind of getting into that. I noticed that the kitchen goes through an flex retail space. It seems like the access. Is that kitchen going to be where maybe some of the food vendors would prepare their food?
Yeah, the purpose of having the separate commercial kitchen is within the two fast casual kitchen spaces. They may or may not have a full complement of all the equipment they need on some items depending on the restaurant. So by having that flex space or by having that secondary kitchen, we're able to provide that access, as well as that kitchen also provides us an opportunity to put a mop sink that would cover the other two restaurants so they don't have to put mop sinks within their space. And then obviously with that exhibition space and the flex retail space, if there was an event dealing with food, we have the ability to service it out of a secondary commercial kitchen.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
No one ever thinks that mop. They don't joke about that mop sink.
Yeah. No one wants to put it in their
No,
space when they only got 600 square feet. We've heard enough of it. So yeah, and from that perspective, I mean, it'll be a full kitchen. So
With backflow preventer.
Yeah.
Forget the backflow.
it'll be
I joke.
It'll be all to compliance.
Okay, unfortunately, I wasn't here during the April kind of preliminary review. Irma, would you mind going forward to some of the 3D renderings? Sure.
That was a good question.
So next one, that one. I'm struggling a little bit with that top picture and trying to see how that's agrarian or contemporary ranch. It kind of looks modernistic to me.
The design of that on the photorealistic didn't show the graininess. That building is actually metal, like the building down below.
Okay.
So, as we give you an improved version of that photo, you'll see the details within that.
Is it flat on top, though?
It is. There's a parapet. So, and hence, when you look at the buildings that have the what is apparently a flat roof, but it's actually a parapet, so the roof is concealed within it. Those are the buildings that also, full service restaurant is on the corner of that building. The other flat top building is another full service restaurant. And when we talk about kind of line of sight and being able to hide things, it's the parapet that creates that visual barrier.
Okay. Irma, if you could go back one. So that bottom one, the first thing I thought of when I saw this was something out of a Japanese garden. Like with the all windows and the way that those kind of feed into the middle. I'm not sure if that was, maybe it's just me. I don't know if the other commissioners.
I hear what you're saying, but I think some of it that's missing is just the lighting and whatnot, because essentially those are all going to be patios.
Yeah, those are all patio fronts.
Patios. So you have to enter. So there's going to be people with there's going to be outdoor stuff.
Okay.
And there's a bocce ball court. So
okay.
I kind of like it.
Okay.
That makes sense.
If it breaks it up, I can see it.
So I think if it was just this, and you enter from this angle, and there's not a whole bunch of outdoor stuff and railing and all that other stuff,
exactly.
I'd be with you.
Yeah, there's going to be tables and chairs outside in those areas.
Okay.
So and those will be fairly active areas from a visitor perspective.
When I was asking about how you enter.
Yeah. Yeah, I missed some of those meetings. Okay. And then the previous...
Seriously?
We're almost out of power here. Talk quick, Brian.
Meeting is over.
I have one other question related to the architecture, but
you bet.
If I need the picture before we go there.
Well, how about we go to someone else we can come back to you?
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, there we go. We're back up.
Okay,
who wants to go next, Art or Dan?
I will. Great project.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to it. We live really close by, so we're looking forward to the point of just being able to walk to it.
Or bike.
Yeah, bike would be good too. I love your drawings. I like the wood, and I like the metal and concrete. We came from Texas, and so we did a lot of concrete tilt-up walls with rock, and so it does break things up, and it adds things up.
Yeah, and one of the comments I'll make from an architectural perspective, from hearing from your comments back in the spring meeting, we tried to use and incorporate different materials. So we have, a building of concrete, we have buildings that are the metal, we have buildings that are wood-sided. So it's not just a monochromatic look to all these buildings. We're trying to create character, and obviously with the style development that we're doing, that's very, very important for the quality level of the tenants we're attracting.
No, I think everything what people have brought up before we got the answers to. Like in the crosswalks, have you thought of using rubber pavers or some permeable type pavers too?
Yeah, we in fact in the design, and this is most prevalently shown, I think, in the civil engineering work done by Bethel. Part of and a large portion of the parking lot is permeable pavers there. From a drainage perspective, what's near the creek? Obviously, we're trying to be environmentally sensitive to the creek area.
No, I think this is going to be a great project. We're going to look really forward to you guys breaking ground. Questions have already been answered by everybody else. So, like I said, your comments on some of the landscaping and stuff like that, once we see them again,
yes.
I think we'll be... I'm big on landscape. I like a lot of trees and bushes. And I think where they talk about, putting some planters, kind of break things up. Just add a little more color, a little more...
And we totally agree.
Perfect. I'm good.
The questions I had and what I scribbled on my... when I was doing my homework here, you've answered them.
Awesome.
So the trash, if it works like it says, and it's to your benefit to do what you say you're going to do. The sign I'm really interested to see this big 45-foot high sign. Want to make sure it just doesn't scream Las Vegas. The rest of it, I think you have a very good project.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Brian, did you have
one last one? Yeah.
Sure.
So Irma, can you go back? one more slide, one or two slides. That one right there, perfect. That lower one, I know this is nitpicky. But that light pole right there on that lower, I just don't like that light pole for some reason. Everything else looks fantastic. That light pole.
That's the downward light we're forced to use.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to get a lecture on that.
what it is. Oh, whatever.
So, but to that perspective,
Good news when you're down to one light bulb.
yeah, no. But to that point, and we'll take a much more detailed pass on the lighting plan. I mean, so much of this project, it isn't just building beautiful buildings, because to the point of landscaping, to the point of lighting, all of these things factor in and are an effect upon the environment of the project. So, and I think we've done a fabulous job from an architectural perspective, and we just need to kind of walk through that next layer on the landscaping and lighting, so you folks feel comfortable that it all matches and it's cohesive.
Yeah, and I don't want my comments to come the wrong way. This is fantastic. And I think because of the buildings looking as nice as they do, I'm really kind of getting into the detail. Probably to calm it back a little bit, because in general, everything looks fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody have any other final commentary?
I think we've said it.
Okay, I don't have any speaking slips, and it's not a public hearing anyway, but, okay.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Great work. This looks awesome. I think we're all very excited.
And
I know most of the residents are excited, so.
Fantastic. And we're looking to try to turn this around as quickly as possible on our end. So it's probably 30 to 45 days, and we'll have everything answered and be back in front of you again.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, no written comms. Anybody got any comments here? No? Okay, Mark, you're up.
As you can see, the Habit has a sign that says they're coming. So anybody that tells you otherwise, you can point to them to that sign.
What about Chipotle?
I still haven't heard anything about them. As far as I know, they're still coming, but I haven't seen a sign. Right.
Okay.
Bowling Alley still hasn't come back in, and neither has Carrie's Apartments, but they're working on it, and we've been in contact with them. The Highway 246 street project that Caltrans is going to be working on through the city, including fixing the area by Shell and all of that area, should start in November. So we'll start
Actual
getting
sidewalks and...
Yes, actual sidewalks, our streetscape project sidewalks, and so we're finally getting that.
Many years.
Yeah, so we'll finally get that going. So that's it.
Perfect. Okay. I'm trying to think. I had a question for you, but what about the core? Are they still waiting for remediation?
Yeah, they're still working on doing that. They painted the buildings and they cleaned it up, but they're still, the oil company's still remediating the property.
Okay. Are we having meetings?
I don't know if we have a second meeting in this month. I don't have any agenda items
Okay.
at this point, so
Okay, and we're not sure about November yet either?
that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the report, Mark. And 7:17. Dun, dun, dun.